Um, so yuk e satini stakat yohan gonalchi hati ade hatu yuk e wuch in khasati ya yageta da Cajun yagi ya yagi at kadechit yana disi Cajun ya wachi yadis. Good to see everybody. Thank you for coming. We feel good just to be together today. It's Friday, May 5th today. So, welcome to class. We're going to start class today continuing our theme of preparing food. And we'll start by having a discussion on cutting up different types of meats, including birds, fish, deer meat, anything we have experience of in this group. And then we have a guest in class today, and I'll introduce her, and she's going to share a video that she prepared on how to butcher a chicken. So we put some language together related to her topic as well. And some of the foods that we prepare, fish, birds, deer. We put together phrases for it related to cutting. So one of the phrases we found in the dictionary means cut off the end of it. And you can unmute your mics and repeat this after me to practice. But the last two words, we'll start with the last two words, and it's daq yate. So you can unmute your mics and repeat after me. Daq yate.
Daq yate.
And the whole phrase, awan kach daq yate.
Awan kach. Daq yate.
Next one, Chaksani Keek shared with us is if you're telling somebody cut it, you can say nachash.
Nachash.
Or if you're talking about someone else, saying he or she cut it, you could say awachash.
Awachash.
So you see this common sound whether you're telling someone to cut something or you're saying somebody cut something. They both end in chash. And so this is our core meaning, our verb root. Chash. The word for knife comes from a different verb, to slide. And so this one is a repeat after me. Lita.
Lita.
That means the one that slides. In her video, you'll hear Shahihi saying that your knife needs to be sharp. So we looked up this word. It is sharp. Yashikat.
The Yanaka.
Yashikat.
Yashikat.
Okay. Another phrase Shakhsani Keek shared with us. If you're telling somebody to skin it, you would say nashkish.
Nashkish.
Okay. And if you want to say he or she skinned it, awshikish.
Awshikish.
The last one we looked up for today before we start is a chicken's wing. So chicken, the word in Lingit comes from the word for spruce grouse, and it's used to refer to chickens today as well. And that is kag.
Kag.
Okay. And then its wing is kiji.
Kiji.
Yeah. So if you want to say chicken's wing, kag kiji.
Kag kiji. Also, I think it's part of Kitchkan.
Oh,
Yeah, that's true.
okay.
About the raven wings.
Okay. Shakhsani Kik, how did we sound in our terms that we looked up?
Yeah, yeah, that was good. The unmarked X's are seem to be a little harder for the class,
Mm,
so you need to watch for that one.
okay.
Um, I want to share something that happened to me
Mm,
when I was living in Sitka.
mm-hmm.
My older brother, called me and said, "I'm sending you a deer," and then that was end of discussion, and I got real excited. And then he sent it on the plane, and it turns out that the airlines required, if you're sending a deer, they require the head to be so on there. So here's this whole deer that I had to take care of, and I never skinned anything in my life, but I used to see my family doing it, so I kind of knew. And here we had this deer looking at us, and I had to get a knife and start skinning, and it was really kind of scary for me, but I finally succeeded, and I got the skin off of it, and we just put it on a wagon and took it down to the butcher to cut up. But that was skinning something was a new experience for me, and I was kind of happy that I was able to check on my memory and do it for myself.
Wow.
Yeah. So if you have any experience in skinning anything, that's really quite a job.
Mm,
Yeah. My my mom used to say, be really careful because she used to like to have the skin for making things, moccasins and stuff.
oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you gotta be careful with your knife so you don't punch holes in your skin.
Yeah. And that's harder to do with seal because seal is really slippery and also the skin is thinner.
Hmm. When I was living in Juneau, Hitliish, Lyle James, he's Kagwantan. He would text a few of us who he knew were native and living in Juneau, but we weren't from Juneau. And if they got a deer, he would text us and say, "All right, show up at the boat ramp at this place. We're gonna teach you how to skin a deer." And it was so cool because he would teach us skills, and then we each got to go home with deer meat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was glad I didn't have to handle all that hair that was on the meat. The butcher had to take care of it.
Oh, that's so true too.
Yeah. So we had packaged meat that lasted us the whole year.
Mm. Yeah, you gotta pick the hair off. When I was in Caltech, someone killed a moose for our potlatch, and they brought a big leg over to my auntie's place. And before we could cut it up into strips, we spent a long time picking off all the hair. Yeah.
Imagine the butcher has some system like a steam blower or something to get it up.
Yeah, I wonder how they do that.
Oh dear, it'd be really hard to just sit and pick the hair.
Yeah, they have kind of smaller hairs, finer hairs. Okay. Well, let me introduce our guest. Lingit Class Shahi Yudu Wasau. Leitcha Daniel Yudu Wasau. Kagwantan City. Shakhsani kik de dachkhanawa Denver Kieyati. So our guest today in Lingit, her name is Shahihi, and in English she is called Danielle. She's Kagwantan, and she's the granddaughter of Shakhsani Kik, and she lives in Denver. And so, Shahihi, did you want to say anything to greet our class?
Well, it's nice to meet you all. You heard the intro already. Um, Mind blank. How I got into butchering a chicken is I got tired of paying the high price of just buying, four pieces of chicken breast for what, $15. So a regular, 3 to 4 pound chicken right now costs about $10, $11, and you get all the pieces. So that's how I got into butchering a chicken. And my love for cooking came from Shaksani Keek, my grandma. And she taught me how to make fry bread, a lot of soup, stews. But yeah.
Yum.
Pumpernickel.
Oh yeah, she recently taught me how to make pumpernickel bread.
Ooh.
Gave me a really good recipe.
Yum. Oh, that just makes me miss my grandma. I used to cook with my grandma a lot here in Anchorage, and she would give me the best recipes too. Well, so cool. It's so nice to have you both in class together. We've been talking a lot about food, and so it's just fun the way Shakhsani Keek brings us together around food and with her family. So we'll go into the video, and Shahihi asked me to share with you all that if you have questions as we play the video, you can just put your hand up emoji um, on your Zoom, and I can pause it at any time if you have a question you want right there. You don't necessarily have to wait till the end. And so I'll be watching for your hands, and here we go.
Everyone, hope everyone is doing well. Hello everyone, hope everyone is doing well. In today's video, we will be butchering a chicken. First, what you want to do after opening the package is give the chicken a good rinse in cold water. Also, make sure the knife you're using is sharp. The sharper the knife, the easier it'll be to cut through the meat. It is best to use a plastic cutting board than a wooden one like I'm using, because the chicken juices can leak into the wood. But this wood cutting board I am using is only used for butchering a chicken. Now the first part we will be cutting is the wings. Turn the chicken to the side and lift the wing up. And make your first slit into the armpit of the wing and slowly cut around the shoulder to access the joint of the wing. Feel around the shoulder of the wing to make sure you are cutting around it. Quick pointer, if you have to force a cut, it means you are cutting through the bone. Make a cut in between the joint and socket to free the wing. Do the same thing to the other side. It is best to have a large baking sheet to the side so you can have a place to put your pieces of chicken. Now we will be cutting the legs off. You'll see extra pieces of skin in between the leg and the breast. You'll want to make a cut in between those to free the chicken leg on both sides. Next, you'll want to dislocate the leg at the hip. You'll want to feel around for the hip joint. Place your fingers where the hip joint is and have your thumbs over the knee of the leg. And you're going to fold them back until you hear a pop on both sides. Once you've done that, you'll see the hip joint popping out. You're going to cut in a straight line in between the socket and the joint. Put that to the side and do the same thing to the other leg. Now you'll be cutting the chicken breast and tender out. You're going to turn your chicken and have it lay on its side. You'll see a fat line where the chicken breast is. That is where you'll be making your first cut. Try to cut as close as you can to the rib cage. I find that it helps to make tiny cuts while pulling the breast away from the rib cage. When you get up to the shoulder joint, you'll want to make a cut above that. When you start to cut just above the shoulder, feel around to find the collarbone and cut along that collarbone. Cut the extra skin roughly in half. It'll be easier to cut the breast away from the collarbone and rib cage. Keep cutting until you start to reach the breastbone. Once you reach where the breastbone is, you'll want to start cutting in an upward angle. Now, take as much time as you need to cut the breast. The first time I butchered a chicken, it took me about an hour and a half to fully cut the chicken. So don't feel bad if it takes a while to cut everything. Cut alongside the breastbone to free the chicken and tender away. Now, the chicken tender is only connected by a membrane, so it'll be easy to pull the chicken tender away from the breast. Put the pieces off to the side and do the same thing to the other side. You can throw away the carcass, or you can make a broth with it. To make an easy broth, preheat your oven to 400 degrees Fahrenheit and roast the carcass and any chicken bones you have cut away for roughly 30 to 45 minutes. Then put it into a big pot or crock pot, cover with water and add some roughly chopped onion, celery, and carrot. Let it cook for 4 to 8 hours. I'll be making a separate video for this. Now onto cutting the wing. You can leave it whole if you like, but I like to separate the wing. To cut the wing tip off, find where it folds and make a slit into the crease, then fold it backwards to dislocate the joint and cut between the joint and the socket. It can be difficult, but take as much time as you need to cut it. If you're making the broth with the carcass, you can put the wing tips in there as well. To separate the drumette and flat, do the same thing as you did when cutting the wingtip. Find where it bends and make a small cut into the crease and fold backwards to dislocate it and cut in between the socket and joint. It helps to feel for the joints so that way you know you aren't cutting through the bone. Again, if you have to force a cut, it means you are cutting through a bone. Now you have your flat and drumette separated. Do the same thing to the other wing. With the leg, you can keep it whole if you like, although I like to separate the thigh and drumstick. To do that, you'll see a fat line that goes between the thigh and drumstick. Rule of thumb for this part is you'll cut on the drumstick side of the fat line. So make a small cut and you'll see the joint. Cut between the joint and the socket all the way through. Now you have your drumstick and thigh separated. You can leave the thigh bone in, but I'll show you how you can take that bone out. You'll see this fat line that goes along the bone. Cut along that fat line to expose the bone. Make tiny cuts along the bone to free the thigh meat around it. Once you cut mostly around the bone, take your knife and poke along the bone in between the meat and the bone. Slice along the bone to separate it from the thigh meat. Do the same process to the other leg. You can also put the thigh bone into the broth. If you like your chicken thighs and breasts to be skinless, there is only a membrane connecting the meat and skin together. So all you have to do is just pull it apart like you did with the chicken breast and tender. If there are parts where it is hard to pull the skin off, you can cut between the meat and the skin. You can discard the skin, or you can make it into chicken skin chips. Now, if you don't want any fat on your chicken, you can scrape along the meat with your knife where the fat is to get it off. Repeat the same process for the other thigh and the chicken breasts. If you're going to freeze your chicken breast, you can leave it whole, but I find that it takes a long time for it to defrost. So I like to cut it in half. To cut it in half, take the thicker part of the breast and place your knife roughly in half and cut as evenly as you can. Don't feel bad if you can't cut it in half evenly. I even have a hard time cutting it evenly. As you can see, mine aren't even at all. Now do the same process to the other breast. When it comes to freezing your chicken parts, get some freezer-safe bags. Make sure to label them and put the date on when you package them. That way you know how long the chicken has been in your freezer. So that is how you butcher a chicken. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a like and make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications to see future cooking and baking videos. I hope you take care.
As the largest
Okay, jacuzzi. That's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that video with us.
No problem.
I've seen my mom cut up a duck, and she seemed to know exactly where to cut. She never cut the bones. So she was,
Yeah, I never heard that before. Like, it looked like quite a few times you can tell where to cut by the fat line.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's so cool. I
Yeah.
mean, you think about the body, like the animal's body. Like, why does it produce fat right there, lined up with the bone?
now you know.
Yeah. Now
And
I
the
know.
lubrication on the joints.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I liked in the video how you, when you were checking around its shoulder for that first cut, you said you can feel it, but you can see that you pull your knife away before you stick your fingers in there. I was like, that's a good safety tip.
Yeah, that was a really awesome video. Yes, we actually do sometimes cut our own chicken. Sometimes we get it prepared. We call it airlines chicken. It's like a breast with a part of the mini drumhead, I think is what you called it in the video. Um, Sometimes I'll just make the stock though, just for our chicken dumpling. That was a very, very nice video of how to do it correctly. I kind of just chop it up when I do mine. But also I just wanted to add that my grandfather's name was Kaushte, and I recognized the name Shakhechi as one of the relations. And I just want to say thank you very much for sharing the video with us.
Oh,
Ah.
That's wonderful. Mm.
okay. So, kadekhaidukak, when you guys cook chicken, do you do skinless or with the skin on?
Well, I think with the skin on, you get more flavor.
Yeah.
We do both. So this depends on what we're using it for. Sometimes we just use the chicken breast, but like I said, we use one called the airlines chicken, but for some reason we have um, a supply issue that's out of our reach. So we're going to discontinue that on our menu. So we had to switch to skinless chicken breast, which is still really good, but not quite the same as having the drumette and the breast on there on top of our. We may do it with gnocchis, and that sauce that she said in the video is really good on chicken.
Mm. Yum, okay. Yeah, I like how this started out for you as being a way to save money so that you can, buy a whole chicken and butcher it yourself rather than paying extra for a pre-butchered chicken. But when I was watching the video, I was thinking of so many things too. Like Shakhsani Keek shared with us in a nutrition class about how it's better to get meat with the bone in because you get more calcium into your meat that way. And then how it can.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
when it comes to saving the chicken tenders and the wings, I just have a big Ziploc bag that I keep in my freezer, and I just keep adding to it until I have, a sufficient amount to have either, um, chicken tender strips or, uh, have wings.
Yum. That's so good. It seems really similar to like the process for cutting deer. Like the skill can transfer over to other animals you get for survival.
Yeah, yeah, you do have to know the how to navigate through all the joints in the bone. Don't destroy the good stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
I heard somebody say that the grizzle is really important. That it's really important to have it for uh, healthy meals and things like that. Uh, so I never really thought of it before because a lot of people don't like the grizzle. I was always kind of embarrassed because I like to chew on it. And people just kind of set it aside. It's actually good for you if you can chew it up.
Mm. Yeah, it probably has calcium and also probably collagen or other good things like that in it too, huh? Huh. Yum.
Yeah, and the chicken broth, I was
Hmm.
really interested in it too because I tried it and it really didn't come out. I put it in the oven first and then cook it. That was uh, that was a step that I didn't do. So no wonder my chicken broth was so cloudy and so didn't even really look like chicken broth.
Yeah, there's actually a different method that you can make chicken broth where you take all the chicken bones and you poach it in water first before you actually make the broth out of it, and it makes uh a more clear broth than roasting the chicken parts first.
Mm. Yeah, the only thing I ever poached was salmon. But I need to check around, I guess, and find a poaching bag. I used to have one, but uh, it's hard to find.
What kind of knife do you like to use for butchering birds?
Any old regular butchering knife,
Mm-hmm.
really. Like, let's say you have a special knife that you use for filleting a fish, you can
Mm-hmm.
use that same knife on a chicken.
Okay. I grew up cutting fish. That's what I'm most familiar with and comfortable with because I fished with my dad growing up, but I had to get a lot of stitches before I learned how to be safe with my knife. I'm all stitched up on this side.
Yeah, that happened to me too. And after a while, you just kind of learn to tuck your fingers in I think I've gotten stitches on every finger one by one through the process. And yeah, after a while, you learn to tuck your fingers.
Yeah, tuck your fingers. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, I
since I'm blind, I always think, well, this knife is so sharp because my son keeps a knife really sharp. And I keep thinking, if I get my finger in a way, it's going to be a disaster. But every now and then I get a nick, and that not, doesn't come from cutting something, but digging into the knife drawer.
Mm.
I get nicks, and I get bandages here and there,
Ouch.
band-aids, but, but it mostly it's not from cutting something. It's being careless.
Yeah. Yeah, that's happened to me before too. Ouch. Okay. Any more comments or questions for our discussion? If not, I can add more vocabulary to our list. I always like to do this after learning about something. Let's see what else we come up with. So, do a table. So far we did a one kach dakiti, cut off the end of it. So I'm going to take this phrase and we're going to change it to say cut off the wing. And I'll do this a larger font. So Danielle, one of the things that we've been working on in this class is taking a phrase that we know how to say and then switching just a noun in Lingit to a different noun so that we can apply it. So one of the things we learned before class is a one kach dakiti, cut off the end of it. So what I like to do for this is look up the first part of it in Lingit to see if that's the noun. And then I gotta go to the Lingit side. So here, Command F. And I see this example phrase, a one kach dakyate, comes from the entry of one ka, and it says that's the edge. So what I would do, and I encourage all our students to start changing sentences by changing just the noun. So I'm going to write down beneath it what part means the edge. So we have its edge. I'm going to make it smaller so it lines up. And the next word is dakyate. So cut it off. So we have dakyate for cut it off. Dakyate. Let me actually check that.
so that would be the verb part of the phrase.
Yeah. And
Okay.
that would be the verb part, is that the end. It's often different from English, where in English we say cut off first, that's the verb part. A lot of times,
Yeah.
yeah, a lot of times that will come at the end in Klinga. So if I wanted to change this to cut off the wing of it, I would change its edge to its wing. Dakyate. And so one of the things we looked up earlier was wing, kakije. It's chicken wing. Or if we want to look up wing in the dictionary, let me find it. Kije. We have kitsch for wing, or kiji is a variant. So I would put a kiji right here.
Do we have a word for joint?
Oh, joint would be a good one. Let's look it up. It's joint. Joint. So far I'm seeing one as part of a phrase for the shell of a boat, yak, da ite de. And this is, I'm going to keep scrolling for a more clear answer, but whenever I look in the dictionary, I start with the very first thing that pops up. And so I'm seeing canoe or boat as yak, and then da it yi at e, and that means a round joint. So I'm guessing that it might have something to do with joint, but I'm going to keep looking. So joints, here we go. Joints between the bones, literally meaning between body. And we have da itkak. And this is a cool one because if you look at the breakdown or the gloss afterwards, they write it in order. So da it means body ends. And then kak means between. So this is where we can start to break down the language piece by piece to see what each part means, and then get a larger idea that joints between the bones is da itkak. So I'm going to put this in our list as well. With body parts in Lingit, if you have a hyphen in front of it, it means that phrase needs to be connected to whose body part or what's body part it is. And so we have to replace the hyphen with either an animal's name, or if you just want to say it, you could replace it with a. So its joint would be ada idqaq. Does that sound right, Shakhsani Keek? Ada idqaq. Let's see. So if we want to say cut off its joint, we can use another word we learned for cutting. Nakash. Cut it. So I'm going to take this. Nakash. And I'm going to add this to our list of phrases. So we'll put the English on the English side. And if I want to say cut the joint, then we would put joint first. So again, when we look at Lingit verbs, the order of words will be different from English. So I'm going to look up the word for cut and find where to put the word joint. So for cut it or saw it, in the verb dictionary, you'll see this mathematical equation looking type of thing. But what this tells me is that you have your object first, and then your subject, the person cutting, and then the verb root kash. So this tells me that the thing I'm cutting needs to go first. And so I would put joint first and then nakash. So let's see if this sounds good. Ada itchak nachash. And so that would be cut the joint. Does this sound right to you, Shakhsani Keek?
Not it, not it, nach, nach,
Oh, okay, nach. Ada it nach
nachash.
nachash. So this is awesome. Shakhsani Keek is correcting. So we had ada it chak for joint, and she thought about it, and she goes, no, it would be ada it nach nachash. So this is where it's really helpful as a learner to look in the resources, but then also be able to come to an elder for, does that sound right, and what's the more natural way to say this? So let's practice this phrase together. Starting with the last word, meaning cut it. Repeat after me. Nachash.
Nachash.
And then the word for its joint. Ada itnach.
Itnach.
And cut the joint. Ada itnach nachash.
Ada itnach nachash.
Okay. So this is just kind of a fun way you can take words from the dictionary, put them together, and then work with a fluent speaker on refining it. Yeah. We have 10 minutes left. What else is on your guys' mind from the video and the language we learned today?
It's definitely something new for me to work into some of the things I've been working on, but it does definitely fit. And just getting the word order is sometimes challenging for me, but after a while, it starts to sound better if I hear other people who are fluent speaking.
Okay. Yeah, I feel the same way. That's why I feel so lucky that Shaksani Keek is here. Because there's only so far we can go. If, like, for me, I grew up speaking English, and I have my knowledge base from school, and I have my resources, but nothing measures up to a birth speaker who knows the language. Okay, and there's a comment in the chat that they appreciate the videos and translating it into Lingit. Okay.
The whole thing translates into cutting birds, especially ducks. I think.
Yeah.
I was telling Anna that my dad started cutting with the mallard duck, the male mallard duck, bright green neck with some white on it. And he would take that whole area that is green and cut it and just peel it. And he would make sure that it was kind of clean on the skin side. You can't really do a lot because it's thin. You don't want to destroy the skin. And let it dry. And they were in small squares. So you would have to have a lot of them. But he said that if you get a big collection of them, you could actually make a cape or a small blanket for a child, which would be really colorful. And he started a collection before the fire in Huna. So I was watching him as he was putting those on the board to dry, and he had a few already done. And I realized it was going to take a while to get enough ducks to make a blanket, but he was working on it. And I was just really amazed, that we would even think of doing something like that. It would be so beautiful. I think even in the museums, I never saw one.
Yeah, those bright green feathers with the white feathers too would be a really beautiful blanket. When we were kids, my dad would save the wings of spruce hens, and he would do this. He would pin them to a board as well, spread it out, and pin them to a board. And I used to see him hanging up in the garage, drying out there. And I never saw what he did with them, if he gave them to someone for sewing, but they'd be really pretty on regalia.
He didn't say what it was for.
No, I bet I could ask him and he would tell me where they ended up. When we were little kids, I got so used to seeing different body parts of animals all over the place. Yeah. My dad was always putting up food for us. There's a comment in the chat that says, my mom is Omaha Plains Indian and my dad is Lingit. My dad raised me, but my mom's tribe as an adult, I'm just now learning about my dad's people and I find many similarities. Oh, very cool.
That's great.
Yeah. Shahihi, what else? So I was like picking her brain before class about her YouTube channel because this is part of a channel she has. And she does all of her own filming, editing, voiceovers, and she does all kinds of topics. But what's your favorite part of it, Shahihi, of making videos?
I'd have to say the recording part, because as soon as you get done making the food, you can eat it right away. But I'd say the most difficult part is choosing what parts to include into your video that you're making,
Mm.
and trying to choose and pick what to say or how to describe it. But I'd say the fun part is recording.
Yeah. Super awesome. And you guys have soundproofing. We saw the soundproofing in your background. So you guys do multiple different types of videos and everything.
Yeah. I do cooking and baking videos. I do crafting / beading and crochet videos. And I've recently started getting into nail art videos as well.
Okay. Jacuzzi. Well, I'm putting your YouTube video link in the chat so people can check out your channel. And was there anything else you wanted to share with us before we part ways? It was so nice to have you in class today.
What other videos have you done?
I'm in the process of making a bread video on how to make bread rolls, loaves of bread, even fry bread. Yeah, and then I plan on making a video on like how to meal prep for any kind of meal prep. And another tip that I just remembered for chicken is, after you're done butchering the chicken and you want to marinate that chicken, you can just put the marinade into the chicken before you freeze it. And then when you want to defrost that particular marinade or whatever you want to prepare, you could just
Mm.
take it out and it'll marinate as it defrosts.
Oh, cool. What a cool idea. Yeah, 'cause I always try to defrost my meat slow, like in the fridge over a couple days. And so that would be cool if it was marinating during that time.
Yeah, you just put the marinade. Teriyaki is a really good one. Sweet and sour is another good one, or even just simple, you know, olive oil with salt and pepper and some, garlic powder. Put it in there, put it in the freezer, and then if you want that specific, type, you just take it out and let it defrost either in water or like what you do in the fridge.
Yum. I'm gonna try that. I'm probably gonna go buy a whole chicken this weekend and work on it and see if I can cut up my own chicken.
Yeah,
Yeah, the first time
chicken parts are real expensive.
Mm.
yeah, yeah, the first time I butchered a chicken, like I said in the video, it took me an hour and a half, and the carcass didn't look how it did in the video. Like there were still a lot of meat parts on on the carcass. So definitely take your time and try to perfect it,
Mm.
through practice.
Mm. Okay. Écoutez. So cool. Well, thank you so much for coming to our class today. You're just a wealth of knowledge, and it's inspiring to see your creativity and how you combine that with your culinary skills. And it was just awesome. I learned a lot, and it led into a lot of cool language studies too. So goodness, geez.
Ah,
Okay. Well, we're at time, so thank you everybody for coming, and we'll see you here same time on Tuesday, same Zoom link. Goodness, geez, Johan, to ye kwasatin.